Hello, everybody. Welcome to Crash Zoom. My name's Sammie Purcell. Just kidding. No, obviously, it's me, Aaron Strand. Sammie is on vacation. She's, living it up at the beach, I believe. What beach exactly? I'm going to have to get back to you on that. I'm sure she'll come back with a full report next week. But in her stead, I have asked a fantastic guest to sub in Sammie's place, writer, actress, producer Imani Vaughn-Jones is joining us here. She produces some wonderful social media content, sort of covering what's going on in the film and television industry. I really, really enjoy her content, her reels, her takes on stuff. So I wanted to bring her on the show and talk about what's going on in the news. Imani, how are you doing today?
I am so excellent. I am coming to you from LA, even though I'm not based in LA. And that's like a gift in and of itself, to work all over the place. So I am so excited to be here.
Phoning in from across the country. What can you tell us a little bit about sort of like what your background is? How'd you get into the sort of like news takes game, and kind of what are you working on these days?
Yeah, absolutely. So my background is, all over the place because I wear so many hats. I do so many things, but very quickly, originally was an actor. Then the pandemic hit and acting was like illegal. And so that's how I found my way back to writing because, we all write stories when we're little kids. So I found my way back to that. And then when we were in that weird phase where the pandemic wasn't like over, but you could be in person again, is when I came to producing because I was like, all these things that I've written during this time, I now want to see come to life. So that's how those hats came to be. And then these industry takes that I've been doing, honestly, it was kind of like this organic, like outgrowth of me just being like, what do I want to see on social media that like I'm not seeing a whole lot of? And what would be useful to me? Like we're kind of past the really glitzy, like Instagram days where it's like you could just post your food and like that was enough. Now you kind of have to actually be like useful, you know?
Yeah.
And so I was like, what's useful to me and would be useful to other people? And I was like, the news, there's so much industry news. People don't know what's going on. I know back when I only identified as an actor, like I didn't know anything about what was going on.
Right.
And so I was like, I think this would be super helpful. And it has been.
I love that. That we have kind of a similar origin story in that way, which is that like I spent like 15 years in this industry, like really not knowing my ass from a hole in the ground. And like as I like started to get like as I started to educate myself, thinking like, oh my god, like there needs to be more resources for people to learn about what's actually happening in the nuts and bolts of this world. So I love
Yeah.
that, and I'm so please check out her content. We'll link her Instagram down in the show notes. So please check this out. If this is your first time joining Crash Zoom, what we do here is we talk about sort of the big goings on of the film and television industry, and we try to talk about them from the perspective of independent creators and how these macro forces are affecting the small independent artists that is the bread and butter of this industry. Um, if you've never listened before, or if you like what you hear, please like, subscribe, rate, and review. Follow us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all the podcast bullshit. Just follow us on all the bullshit. Instagram, TikTok. Hit us with the stars and the reviews and all that bullshit. It would really, really go a long way to help us out. Now, before we get into the headlines, Imani, uh, we always start this show the same way, which is just a little recap of what have you been watching lately? What have you been watching this week?
Oh my gosh. So I haven't watched a whole lot because the whole reason why I'm in LA is because I was producing an event out here. So I've been super heads down. But on the flight over, I know I'm a little late, I finally got to watch all of Adolescence. And that was a lot.
What that is I feel like that's a wild plane choice. Is that like your normal airplane fare of like as hard hitting like drama as possible?
I actually do have a habit of like watching things that maybe shouldn't be watched on a plane. I think part of it is that like I love films. As much as I like TV, I don't watch a whole lot of it because I'm like, I don't just
Same.
have like hours and hours to give something. So
Yes.
the plane is usually where I catch up on things. So like one of my go-to plane shows is The Boys, which is like a terrible thing to watch in public because if somebody looks over and just sees like evisceration or just like nudity, yeah, it's a lot. So I guess that is a habit of mine.
Yeah, I would be very concerned of watching adolescents on a plane of the screen gazers around me. Were you like sort of spying out and like looking for like who was, copping glances at your screen?
No, because I'm a veteran inappropriate material watcher, I always get like a window seat and kinda like pivot myself into the wall.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I was
Nice.
good. But yeah, it
Nice.
was very intense, very well made. Um, and honestly, I think it brings up some really interesting, points about who is complicit, spoiler, everyone, when this type of violence erupts among young people specifically.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. I haven't watched it yet for the exact same reasons. I'm just not a TV guy. I'm like me and
Mhm.
Sammy were like doing a watch along with the studio and like I couldn't even keep up with it. It's kind of
Mhm.
pathetic. But because I watch movies, like I just like movies. But I've
Yeah.
of course I've read about the filmmaking and the subject matter, and adolescence does seem like something that I should check out at some point in the future. So I love that for you. On my end, I also have not been
Yes.
watching very much. Been head down, very, very, very busy. Although yesterday it was Father's Day. It was Father's Day, and I got to spend it with my beautiful 3-year-old daughter. And I am on like dad cloud nine at the moment because I have successfully indoctrinated her into the cult of Godzilla. She loves the old
What?
Godzilla movies, which is what what introduced me to film in the first place. I brought her to see Godzilla versus Mothra at the Plaza Theater a month ago. Now I am telling her a Godzilla story every night at bedtime. She asks for it
Oh
by
my
name.
gosh.
She's obsessed. And so this was unprompted. I did not influence this at all. But on Father's Day, by the time we got back in the afternoon and it was like really hot to go outside, she said, "Dad, I want to watch Godzilla movies." And I was like, "Yes, like best
Whoa.
Father's Day ever." So luckily the Criterion Channel has some dubbed films in their Godzilla collection. It's getting harder and harder to find the old like English dub versions. And of
Yeah.
course she's 3, so she can't read subtitles. But a lot of their dubbed versions are like the absolute worst Godzilla's ever made. So I did watch the truly like most horrific Godzilla movies ever made, Godzilla versus Megalon and Son of Godzilla, which is
Oh my
such
gosh.
unadulterated trash.
Oh
Um
my gosh.
and but yeah, I watched them both. She loved it. She loved Son of Godzilla, which is again so bad. And I was on Dad
I'm
Cloud 9. So
I'm obsessed right now. I also am like, you have hit like the parenting lottery, like instead of having to listen to Let It Go 30
oh,
times in a row.
whoa, 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 whoa. Hold on, hold on, hold
Oh,
on, hold on.
oh.
Don't worry. She has yeah, don't worry. Let it go. I don't understand what it is about that particular power ballad that is like a universal language of girls 10 and under. From the
I don't get
second
it either.
from
As
the
a grown
sec
woman, I actually understand the appeal, but I'm like, what does it mean to you?
Yeah, there's something like I don't know. There's something universal about it. I mean, she first saw Frozen right after she turned 2 years old, and it was just love at first sight. And Let It Go was like it just spoke to something in her. So yeah, she's got like a Frozen karaoke machine that plays like not even the Idina
Ah.
Menzel version of Let It Go on repeat. It is horrible. So don't worry, I'm getting plenty of that too. Don't worry.
Well, dang.
Anyway, well, let's hop into the headlines. Okay. So, starting off, we've got an article here from The Wrap. This is I thought this was really the biggest news of the week last week, which is that Disney and
Mhm.
Universal are suing the AI image generator Midjourney for copyright infringement. This is an article from Sean Birch and Jeremy Fuster. So, basically, last Wednesday, Disney and Universal filed a 143-page lawsuit against the AI image generator Midjourney, which is the software behind. Do you remember that image that won the 2022 Colorado State Fair's annual art competition? And this was like
No?
the first time someone passed AI art as like their own and it won the competition, which is so funny because
No.
if you look back at that art that won the competition, it's so obviously AI slop at this point. But at the time, it felt very new and innovative. So anyway,
Wow.
Midjourney was behind that image. But these companies, Disney and Universal, are claiming copyright infringement. Basically, within the suit, they've included dozens of pictures comparing screenshots to popular films and TV shows from Frozen, shout out, Kung Fu Panda, Deadpool, Star Wars, and then Midjourney images that generated AI characters from those franchises that were identical to the original franchises. So there's been a lot of sort of strong language coming out of both Disney and Universal and from the sort of Hollywood in general. So we have some quotes here of this is from I can't remember actually who this is from. Sammie is better at making sure to get the proper quotes here. Um, the quote here is this is from maybe the lawyers that filed the lawsuit. Sorry, guys, I'm not usually the host here. Okay, the quote is piracy, and whether an infringing image or video is made with AI or another technology does not make it any less infringing. Midjourney's conduct threatens to upend the bedrock incentives of U.S. copyright law. Um, the Midjourney, for those who don't know, is an independent San Francisco-based AI company that has been painted, and they're now being painted as this nefarious villain. Bryn Mooser, or I'm not sure if it's Bryn Mooser or Brian Mooser. We talked about him last week because he's Natasha Lyonne's husband, and they started an AI studio
Oh.
together, Asteria. He came out in the article. He had a lot to say. The RAA chairman and CEO Mitch Glazier said in a statement, quote, "There is a clear path forward through partnerships that both further AI innovation and foster human artistry. Unfortunately, some bad actors like Midjourney see only a zero-sum winner-take-all game." Midjourney, it had only 300 million in sales last year, which is a lot, but when you compare it to sort of the numbers that OpenAI is doing, it's small potatoes. So we finally have this defining piece of potential legislation. I mean, this could get appealed all the way up to Supreme Court that could define the relationships between existing copyrighted material and AI image generation companies. Imani, what was some of your first reactions to this article?
Well, I mean, my first reaction was, yeah, good for her. As in, like, yeah, sue them. Good, do that. That's what should be happening. I'm glad that they're suing. I hope that they win. I think it's very likely that they win because Disney seldom loses, you know, like the rat is always going to get their coin. So I think I think it's probably going to end up in their favor. And honestly, I'm so tired of like this faux urgency that a lot of these AI companies are trying to create around AI. They like to justify cutting corners by being like, "Oh, we have to stay competitive. We have to be ahead of these other countries." But that doesn't mean anything. It's not a compelling argument when you're not actually saying like, "Oh, the artists, we're all in this together." No, you're like, "Me, Midjourney, I need to stay competitive against other companies with a technology that I'm going to use to get rid of your job," right? Like this is all about their self-preservation. It has nothing to do with our self-preservation. It's actually at our own expense. So I'm like, I'm not interested. You know, like it's not a compelling argument to me.
Oh, I couldn't agree more, and I'm really glad that you brought this up. I even mentioned a federal agency last week tweeted something framing the race for AI as a Manhattan Project level like sense of urgency that we must stay competitive. We're using the boogeyman of China as we must stay competitive on a Manhattan Project level arms race. And it's like, what are like the Manhattan Project was like to defeat the Nazis. Like, what are we doing? What is this existential threat other than like China is going to make a more cost effective AI LLM? But yeah, they basically want to do away with the bedrock of American copyright law, which has really allowed America to dominate the world in terms of business because you know if you come here and you make something dope, you're going to be able to protect it in the court of law, and that's going to be upheld. And they
Mhm.
want to steamroll all of that and use this boogeyman as an excuse. It really, really drives me crazy.
Yeah, and I wanna say there are 2 quotes directly from the lawsuit that I was like, "Straight bars. These are so good."
Oh, hit
One
me, hit
was,
me.
"AI is a virtual vending machine," and another one was, quote, "A bottomless pit of plagiarism." I was like,
Yes.
"Wow, that's
Oh,
excellent."
really got the
Now, could
plosives in
AI write
there.
that? That's proof right there of humans and their creativity.
Yeah. I think they consulted with Nas before they filed this lawsuit. Um, no, it's definitely very strong language. Now, how do you feel about the fact that they're clearly targeting Midjourney, which is one of the few sort of AI startups that made a big splash on the internet scene that has not partnered or been essentially had a faux takeover from this big tech company. I think they're going after Midjourney here because they are still independent and they don't have the financial resources that an OpenAI with their big daddy Microsoft money has. So, how do you feel about them attacking this smaller level image generation?
Yeah, I think that's a good point that like there is a strategic advantage to going after a small company so that like they can't fight it back as hard. And also if they win this case, then that sets the legal precedent for if they choose to go after like an open AI. But I also think part of it is that Midjourney has been so flagrant. Like in I believe one of the articles, 'cause we have a few articles here today, but in one of them, they straight up just had, like, a screenshot of the front page of Midjourney just, like, showing off how well we can make Homer Simpson, and it's like,
Yeah.
at least, like, OpenAI has pretended to, like, care about Hollywood, and maybe we got off to a rough start, but we wanna do it right now, and it doesn't appear that Midjourney has tried to do that. It seems like they're very happy to be ripping off people's work.
Yeah, that screenshot of Midjourney's like infinite derivations of Homer Simpson with sort of like a 3D Homer Simpson and an anime Homer Simpson and
Yeah.
I don't even know what other. It was like so many Homer Simpsons, pretty damning. But you know, I think the most generous sort of reading of the situation would be um, that they are doing this. They are going after a smaller company that doesn't have the resources of a company like OpenAI. To establish legal precedent, and that will scare
Mhm.
back the big players from the infringements they are no doubt doing. But like this is so little so late. Like they really should have been doing this 3 years ago. We
Yes.
covered it on this show. We covered an article in the Atlantic 6 months ago that we now have verifiable proof that OpenAI trained their language models on hundreds of thousands of Hollywood scripts, and they were doing it by stealing audio subtitle captions from an open source subcaption website. Which is, I mean, just kind of nefarious targeted data scraping
Yeah.
to train these models, and I worry that the cat's out of the bag, the genie's out of the bottle, the thing is out of the thing. Choose your metaphor, but there's a big mess all over the floor.
Pick 2 nouns and one is out of the other one.
The pillow's
Uh,
out of the gold rush. I don't know. Sorry, that was. It's been a while since I've done improv. Okay, that was a yes and the pillow is out of the gold rush, Imani.
it's out of the gold rush. But I think you're correct. I think that legal precedent is the most important part here, because I think the bigger companies, like if they went after OpenAI, this would have just been drawn out for years and years, and they still probably would have lost. I really truly believe that at the end of the day, America doesn't care about people; it cares about businesses. And that this case affects businesses because copyright law is the foundation of our business model here in America. But it would have taken a lot longer. I think they're going to get quicker results going after this smaller company.
Yeah, agreed. It's also interesting in the light of the fact that the US Copyright Office has been putting out its definitions around AI and sort of making sure that AI is factored into the written law of the land. They have yet
Hmm.
to speak on the use of copyright material within the sort of the legal framework, and certainly tested by the by the corpse or by the courts. Whoa, Freudian slip. Is it the court? I wonder if anyone. I'm sure a million people have made that joke before. Is it a court or is
Mm.
it a corpse? Maybe they were just maybe they were even getting a. I wonder if they were getting a sort of wink and a nod from the U.S. Copyright Office saying like, yeah, go ahead with this case so that we can actually like get the result into law.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I'm fascinated to see how it goes because I like to not let my personal biases get in the way. And so in entertaining Midjourney's argument, right? Their argument is that, okay, sure, our works are inspired by things the same way that a human's work is inspired by things. And I think that answering that question is going to be at the center of all of this litigation, right? Like, how much inspiration and even how much emulation can a human, like reasonably partake in? And then when we get rid of the human, like, does the robot get those exact same allowances, or are they stricter?
Yeah, and I've been on such a journey with this sort of stuff because when I came in here, I was trying to zag on this take and saying sort of like, I mean, what are AIs really doing, right? They're taking in a million inputs and they're slapping them together and producing something as a result. Like, how is that so different from a human being's creative process? You still can't, as a human, draw Homer Simpson, having watched hundreds of Simpsons episodes, and then go sell like Homer Simpson portraits like at
Yeah.
scale. Like, they're gonna come
Yeah.
after you. You can't Homer Simpson farm a YouTube channel without without Disney coming and saying like, where's our money? So yeah, I mean, I think that this is kind of like low hanging fruit, but you're right. Getting down to that very issue of how differentiated is this from the human creative process, which is obviously
Mhm.
these are the sort of terrifying existential questions that people have been saying are coming with AI for decades now.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I did think it was worth noting, and this didn't come up in either of the articles, but did you read sort of just in the other internet chatter that in like typical broke boy billionaire fashion, Warner Brothers was invited to join this lawsuit and they declined because they didn't have enough money to cover the legal fees, or like because they're so saddled with debt and like Warner Brothers is such a shit show that
Oh my
they did
gosh.
not join the lawsuit. They're a conspicuous absence from this lawsuit.
Oh my gosh, that's really funny.
Yeah.
And honestly, I'm kinda surprised they didn't do it because they love to, like, somehow throw away money. So
I
I'm like, "Why not
know.
throw it away on this lawsuit?"
They're suing the NBA, but they can't sue Midjourney? Come on,
It doesn't make
Zaz.
sense.
Get your
It doesn't
shit
make any
together,
sense.
dude. Get your shit together.
Oh my
Oh,
gosh.
Zaz. He's broken my heart so many times. He's broken my heart too many times. Okay. Anyway, in other AI news, now one of the things that I always think is the great danger of AI, in my opinion, is not just the exploitation of artists, but that AI seems like an incredible vehicle for the concentration of wealth. This is not
Yeah.
necessarily like an entertainment story, but I think that this story is incredibly telling and that everybody needs to know about it. So, uh, recently, Meta announced that they want to fully automate ads. Well, this is the film and television side of this story, and then I will actually broaden it into a sort of less film and television story, but more about the concentration of wealth. So, Meta announced that they hope by the end of next year to fully automate ads with AI. So, Meta aims to now allow brands to fully create and target advertisements with its artificial intelligence tools by the end of next year. The 3.43 billion unique active users can access AI-driven tools to help create personalized ad variations, image backgrounds, and automated adjustments to video ads, making it incredibly lucrative for advertisers. A brand could essentially provide a product image and a budget, and Meta's AI would generate the ad, generate the video, generate the text, and determine user targeting on Instagram and Facebook with budget suggestions. Advertisers could personalize ads using AI so that users see different versions of the same ad in real time, all based on factors such as geolocation. So, really, sort of impressive tool. However, this is going to be a massive hit to what is already a struggling industry, the ad agencies, and most importantly, from our perspective, the filmmakers, crews, and actors that survive doing ad work. What did you think when you saw this article?
So obviously, like as a creative, I'm disheartened and disgusted because yeah, this is just like gonna erase so many jobs. As like, I don't know how to describe it. As a thinking person, I was like, this makes complete sense. It is the absolute natural evolution of things. Like we have seen all of the puzzle pieces for this over like the past 10 years, and this is just like finally the completed puzzle, right? So like on YouTube, we have had the A/B testing feature for thumbnails, right? So you can put when you're uploading a video, a few different thumbnails, and YouTube will run the test and decide what's most optimized and pick the best thumbnail for you. And then over like on Netflix, we found out like 10 years ago that Netflix has a whole bunch of like cover images for each title, right? And you get the specific image that they think is going to appeal to you. For example, Netflix has figured out that I'm Black. So every single show and movie that it shows me, it gives me the image with a Black person in it. The amount of times I've
What?
clicked on a show, yes, the amount of times I've clicked on a show that I thought was going to be a Black show because the cover image had a Black person, that person was in there for 5 seconds. And
Oh
that was
my
it.
God. I had no idea that this was happening. That's
Yes, Netflix has a
wild.
whole carousel. And let me tell you the thing that was like shout out to my ex. The way that I really learned that Netflix hones in on you is when Beyonce's Homecoming came out. The image it gave me for Homecoming was just her like standing on the stage. She looked so fierce, giving
Uh-huh.
girl boss. It was totally up my
Yes.
alley. The
Yeah.
image on his was literally just her from the behind, huge ass. Like it was just
Huge ass.
ass in the thumbnail.
Yeah.
That was
That's wow. That's amazing.
yeah.
I
So it's
mean,
like
it
already
seems
been
smart.
happening?
Wait. Hold on. I have to ask. What's the whitest show you've been duped into clicking on by
Oh, I don't even know, man. I don't know because once I reach like
adolescence
20
maybe? Was
minutes,
it
you want to know something though? They did have the Black Detective on Adolescence for me.
they
So
did?
yeah, they
Did
did.
did Delta tile him for you? Did they put him on the tile, or
Oh no!
maybe
I had
not?
it.
Maybe not that in
It was
advance. Or
on my Netflix, like my actual Netflix on my
okay.
phone. So.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, this is going on already, right? Like small versions of this. Um, and the thing that makes it so obvious that this is coming is that it's coming from Meta. Meta has been doing insane amounts of curating when it comes to advertisements. I don't know if you have listened at all or read the book Careless People that I think it came out like last year.
I have not read it. I've seen the title like come across my Instagram, but
Mhm.
yeah, Meta has somehow like sent it to me in some way, shape, or form. But I've not read it. What's tell me about it?
Well, it is a book that is written by a former major exec who was at Meta. And like she was in charge of things when it came to like ad targeting and social media and ethics and all sorts of stuff like that. And in that book, she talks about like how granular they would get when it came to monitoring people's behaviors and the ads they would serve up to them. And like the part for me that was like so damning, I was like, wow, you guys literally are villains, like super villains, like bald headed, mustache twirling, like villains. Is there's this part in the book where she describes how um, the meta algorithm had determined that like if a person, specifically a woman, posts an image that like their algorithms can determine is a selfie and then deletes that within like a certain amount of time, that signals to them like, oh, she's feeling insecure, the photo isn't getting enough likes, she doesn't feel good about herself. And when they saw that set of behaviors, then they would intentionally push advertisements for Ozempic or for plastic surgery. Or so it's one of those things where it's like Meta has already been doing this. This is just now like the ultra bespoke model.
Yes. Now I saw that specific pull quote or like pull story, and to make it even more sinister, I believe it was specifically targeting teen and early 20-year-old women.
Hmm.
It was like all like young, even underage girl. I just like
Yeah.
totally fucked up shit. Yeah, you're right. They're totally craven, and yeah, man, like this was kind of this was my contrarian take, which is that like this is the obvious like as much as I can kind of be up in arms about the loss of jobs and sort of cash flows that so many artists need between jobs that they're more passionate about and sort of more highbrow entertainment, that the amount of like I think this is one of the greatest concerns about AI across the board is that it's about what is it going to do to the pipeline of talent, right? If AI is going to be
Hmm.
doing, all the like entry level legal work that a former like law school graduate did, how are we ever going to get like a badass partner who has sifted through, hundreds of millions of documents and sort of absorbed all that information to do the sort of higher level work that AI can't do yet? And certainly the same thing goes for the arts. If artists can't survive on doing ads Certainly actors. I mean, my God, the number of actors that have like literally paid their rent, paid their grocery bills because of an ad, residuals that they continue to get from an ad running over the course of the year. If we take all that away, what's it gonna look like? So I think that that's very concerning. Now, I don't know if you saw this, but Kalshi, the like betting website, where you can like bet on anything, they
Mhm.
ran the first ever quote unquote AI generated ad during the NBA finals earlier or last week during game 3. Did you happen to see this little number?
No, I did not.
Oh my God. Okay. So, and I think, I mean, obviously these things will get better, but Kalshi made an AI generated ad that was put together by a guy named PJ Acenturo, Acenturo, I think I don't know how I pronounce it, Acenturo, who identifies himself as an AI filmmaker. And he used the new Google video image generator, Google VO3, to like put together all these clips of just sort of like crazy people. There's like an old man in a boxing ring with like an American flag around his arms, and he's saying who he bet on for the NBA finals. And then there's a farmer who's like sitting in a pool that's like filled with eggs, and he's betting on whether the price of eggs will go up or down. And so it's just this like crazy barrage of like wild imagery. And their tagline is "The world's gone mad, trade it." And this played on national
I don't
television.
like this at
I
all. It's
told,
like
oh,
getting worse the more you say.
now get this. Acenturo said it took him about 300 to 400 generations using VO3 to get 15 usable clips that he then smacked together on iMovie or whatever. One person, 2 to 3 days, $2,000 it cost to make this thing. And so he's touting that it's a 95% cost reduction versus traditional ads, which, like, agreed, it is. And yet I would also argue that the result is like gimmicky, sloppy shit. Like, it looks
Yeah.
disgusting. It only looks the more disgusting the more times you watch it. And so these tools still have a long way to go to delivering fidelity. And it's also sort of interesting, right? Because Kalshi, like, it's already sort of like it's a trading site that like you can trade on everything. It's very sort of tech bro, very sort of male focused, and sort of like people that spend a lot of time on Twitter. Like, it's kind of like appealing to that. So there's like a brand alignment with like, yeah, like AI video, like taking your jobs, and like, look how fucking crazy it is, man. Like, it's kind of like there's like a brand alignment there. And like, I don't know if that translates when you're selling, authenticity and like cosmetics or like authentic
Yeah.
lifestyle products.
Yeah, and that's what I think is gonna be part of it. I think part of it's gonna be brand alignment, and, like, I know later we're gonna talk about Apple, right? And, like, there are certain brands where, like, it's not going to align with who they present to the world, who they want to be to the world, to, like, embrace these tools. Like, I think they're going to choose not to go in that direction because they don't like what it says about them or how it represents them. And also, I've believed this since before AI was even out here, right? Before ChatGPT hit the scene, I was like, when that stuff comes, then human labor is going to become a wealth signifier and a status symbol. Can you afford to hire humans? Can you afford to have 20 people come in and give their actual life force and energy? And I think the companies that are really, really big, I don't think Rolls-Royce is going to want to give you AI slop. I think they're still going to want to give you that gorgeous cinematic, it costs $50,000 like commercial because that's the lifestyle they're selling you with their products.
Yes. Yeah, this is kind of what I'm hoping for in the best case scenario, which is that essentially what happened to fashion translates kind of across the board in terms of entertainment, which is that like you can have your fast fashion, like 10 trillion black t-shirts that you can buy for ultra 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 cheap on Amazon. But that doesn't mean that couture fashion houses are able to be wildly successful. And
Mhm.
you're yes, there's a sort of a loaded symbolic meaning in those couture fashion houses, but ostensibly those things are still being stitched by hand. They're sourcing silk or materials or whatever from other like sort of
Mhm.
handmade processes, and you're trusting that there is a certain sort of craftsmanship that goes into those clothing garments that then signifies your attractiveness to a mate or whatever, and that's sort of the how these things are able to function. And I kind of hope that that's what happens to film and television.
Mhm.
That's my best case scenario, I guess.
I really think film and TV, maybe I'm being too optimistic. I really think film and TV will remain a human-driven field because almost all of us who are in it love it so much, right? Now we've been letting some non-film and TV people in charge, looking at you, David Zaslav. But like overall, the industry is ran and controlled by people who love what we do, and so we're not going to embrace the ability to not do it. But I do feel like commercials are kind of a gray area. Like a lot of people don't necessarily love commercials. They just love what commercials do for them, right? Like I'm one of those people who like I bought my first house based off a commercial. I got so many residuals from Sprite, shout out Sprite, that like it changed my life.
Damn.
But that doesn't mean that like people are like, damn, I love making commercials. Every day I wake up, I'm so happy to make a commercial. And so that's where I think it might get a little I think some people will stay human. I think some people will embrace the AI for it.
Yeah, that's interesting. I heard on a podcast, I think this morning, someone was talking about like, is AI going to take your job? Well, do you feel like, do you hate your job? Do you feel like it's monotonous, like droning work that like that you have absolutely no passion for? And yes, then
Mhm.
it will take your job.
Yeah.
I truly, truly hope that that is the situation. Although I'd have to say that like, I think there were probably a lot of like horse and buggy drivers that were really passionate about their horses.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I think the equivalent of that, right, is that like there are still some horse and buggy drivers. So I think there are still going to be like, I think the Super Bowl ads are still going to be bespoke, made by humans, super expensive. But I do think that like the little button ad that pops up in the middle of like the blog post that you're trying to read and like pisses you off, I think that's probably
Yes.
going to be slop from now on.
Yeah, yeah, totally, totally. I mean, I wouldn't even be like when I'm advertising for an event and like, I do my little like very minimal little ad spend on Meta. If there was an opportunity to sort of like use AI to like personalize
Mhm.
those ads, like I would do it. I mean, I'm the laborer that it's like taking from, in that
Yeah.
scenario. But like, I
Yeah.
don't want to come on a microphone and act like I'm better than this. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
um, so yeah, I definitely could see that.
As long as the ad that Meta makes for you doesn't, like, throw a random black person in it when there's not when it has nothing to do with that. I'm like, "I
Oh,
thought I was coming to a cultural convention, and it's really just Aaron with beers watching a movie."
yeah, yeah. Well, my last film was With Nell and I, which is like a British comedy. I don't know if you've seen it. And
Mm-mm.
there's one black character who comes at the very end of the film. He doesn't even have a line. Yeah, if I had featured him sort of like in the promo for the movie, um, yeah, I think I would have had some answers, or I would have had some explanations that I needed to give to folks. God, I can't believe that's your Netflix experience. I don't really watch Netflix at this
That's
point.
real.
But that is so so crazy. I gotta ask my wife if they're because my wife's Indian. Like I'm wondering if they're targeting her like with like Indian characters and like brown representation like across the board. That's so fascinating.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah, ask and see.
now, speaking of Meta, staying on the Meta track, I just wanted to touch. I sort of led with, or I hinted at this earlier. I just want to talk about sort of some of the things that are happening in the ad space because this is just very frustrating across the board, and it's sort of a macrocosm of sort of what's happening within this world that's just very bothersome to me. So basically, last week, Meta completed they purchased 49% of a prominent startup called Scale AI. Now, Scale AI was a company that does something very boring. It's the type of company that can actually become totally dominant within the marketplace doing the most boring shit ever. They use AI to tag massive data sets to then be fed into other AIs. Okay. So they're basically like tagging data to be factored into large language models. But this is like incredibly important time sensitive work that can determine what a large language model is capable of doing. And Scale AI, with their sort of superstar founder, this young guy named Alexander Wang, had been a very prominent startup. Now, we see this story happen again and again. It is so frustrating to me that once the big tech companies came and gobbled up market share, there have not been any upstart challengers to that market share. And so we as people are left out of the wealth accumulation because basically the giants of the tech world, Meta, Microsoft, Amazon, they have figured out a way to create faux acquisitions of other companies without inviting FTC antitrust legislation. So what they did, they came in,
Mhm.
they purchased 49% of Scale AI. Alexander Wang then resigns as the head of Scale AI. And then 2 weeks later, wouldn't you know it, he's now been hired as the head of AI at Meta. And they did the exact same, Microsoft did the exact same shit with OpenAI. They're doing this over and over and over again. And because we don't have a federal government robust enough to sort of stop this stuff and saying, hey, this is an antitrust violation, we are going to break you up. What's happening is that these big tech companies are just, they are gathering all the wealth. Not all these startups are still private. We can't even invest in them as IPOs. So we're not privy to the wealth generation that comes from them.
Mm.
It's very frustrating. Did anything about this article sort of jump out to you? Was it surprising at all? What did you think about this?
Um, Dang, I don't know. I think you really, like, went in. I think you really summed it up really well. I'm like, "No notes," you know?
Yeah.
Like
We, these type the type of turnover and natural market competition is what America should be about. Like if we're gonna
Yeah.
look, I've got I want to say that I am a capitalist within a sort of regulatory state, that we need regulation to allow capitalism to function, because here we have a clear, whether it's a triopoly, a quadopoly, or just an oligarchy, whatever. We have a few
Mhm.
companies that are consolidating all the wealth and power, and where they're not allowing these startups to come in and disrupt the system. And when startups come and disrupt the system, yeah, they might hurt Meta's stock price, but they also allow normal Americans to invest in these new companies when their share prices are like $20. I mean, an entire generation is going to be retiring on the fact that they were able to buy Amazon, Meta, and Google when it was less than $100 a share. I mean, come
Yeah.
on. Like we should be demanding this. We should be demanding this of our federal government, and it just really drives me crazy. So, this is kind of the story of AI thus far, and that is where the wealth consolidation, and when it comes to sort of like disenfranchising the arts and artists, and taking away copyright protections and all these things, it only continues the story. So I do think it is relevant. But yes, that is my little tirade.
Excellent tirade.
Thank you. Thank you, Imani. I had a feeling that you would support me here, and I'm so glad that you were here for this. Let's get on to some more.
Absolutely.
Let's get on to some more film appropriate conversation. Apple. I don't know if you've heard of them. Apple.
Who?
Yeah, Apple.
Is that a startup?
This little startup company called Apple. They've been dabbling in the film and TV world, and they got this new movie coming out that they have a lot of hopes riding on. This is, of course, F1 the movie, a $200 million plus racing action film about Formula One racing from Apple Original Films, starring Brad Pitt, and it will come to theaters in June 27th. And so, as often happens with these sort of big films, and with this being it's IP, but it's kind of an original story as well, they'll usually go to Penske Media and say, hey, we need a giant variety article that's like really, laying it on thick about how great this movie is. So we had one of these variety articles, and it gave us a sort of full rundown about all this, about the whole production. Now, first of all, as filmmakers, we should know Top Gun Maverick writer-director Joseph Kosinski. He was the writer-director behind this film. There's a whole new camera technology to capture the sheer force of auto racing. Apple CEO Tim Cook emphasizes that the same tech is baked into the latest iPhone camera. F1 was a
Whatever that means.
I know, right? What the fuck was he talking about? He gave no details, for the record. He gave no details. Yeah, that new iPhone aperture really brought this racing to life. So anyway, F1, it is a co-production between Apple Original Films, Brad Pitt's Plan B Productions, Jerry Bruckheimer Films, and then Lewis Hamilton, the F1 champion racer, his new production company called Dawn Apollo. And then Warner Brothers is handling the worldwide distribution. So, the origin story of this seems to be that Lewis Hamilton, and if you don't follow F1 racing, Lewis Hamilton is a British race car driver. He's black as well, which is like sort of rare in the F1 world. He was a 7-time world champion racer. He was kind of like the top of the game. In the last 4 or 5 years, he's kind of been slipping down the leaderboard charts, but he's still kind of a living legend. But basically, he reached out to Kaczynski after hearing about Top Gun Maverick, and he said, and he asked for a supporting role as he's like thinking about his life after racing. Now, he wasn't able to clear his racing schedule enough to get a part in Top Gun Maverick. However, Kaczynski then reached out to Hamilton after binge watching the Netflix show Drive to Survive and said, hey, can we work on a movie together? Now, it just happens to be that the man behind Apple's expansion into film and television, Eddie Q, the longtime Apple veteran who is the head of services at Apple, which is where their film and TV is bundled in their corporate structure. He also happens to sit on the board of Ferrari, which is also Hamilton's racing team. So, and there's also speculation
that talk about concentration of wealth,
bro,
just everything you've described.
Right. This is this is a rich guy movie for some rich guys sitting around being rich. There's also speculation that Apple will bid on the rights to Formula One when the league's deal is up in 2026. Okay, so I know I just threw out a whole bunch of names and numbers and connections and like cool guys sitting around. Let me just ask you this, Imani, are you excited for F1 the movie?
So I wasn't. I really did not care, and I think I kind of still don't care, but I love, when a new technology is invented for the film industry. I love that. I think that's so much fun. So the fact that they allegedly have created new technology so they could really capture the speed and what it was like to be in the car, I'm like, great. I think that's awesome. More jobs because of film and for film. The story does not appeal to me. I think it's really funny that they keep saying this is a 4-quadrant film because I'm like, as a woman, I don't care. I don't.
Yeah,
I don't care.
Explain 4-quadrant films to people if they don't understand.
Right, so they're the 4 quadrants, right, are like male, female, young, and old, basically. And a 4-quadrant film means that you appeal to all 4 of those quadrants. It's going to appeal to everybody, a huge commercial success, money, money, money in the box office. I, as a representative from at least 1, if not 2 of those quadrants, I'm like, I just don't. It's not compelling me. Maybe how they think they're gonna get women is that Brad Pitt's in it.
Pitt's sexy, right?
Still like attractive. Yes. Yes,
he's sexy, but like, is that really a 4-quadrant appeal? I don't know. What is Brad Pitt's female box office? I don't know if Brad Pitt's like female box office has really moved the needle in 20 years. Ever?
I have no idea, but I will say that the movie they didn't give a theatrical release, even though they should have, that one, Wolf,
yeah.
I was gonna see that because it was 2 sexy men. I didn't care about anything else. I was like, it's 2 sexy men, and I think they're spies. I like spies, so that would have worked for me. But yeah, Brad Pitt in a car is not.
Okay, so Brad Pitt and plus George Clooney, that's hot. Brad Pitt driving around in circles, that's not.
No. Exactly that. Unless Brad Pitt's gonna throw some punches during this, then maybe that can up the sexy factor.
Oh, of course he's gonna throw a punch. Come on. He's gonna get in a fight with another racer.
On the track, just like grab him by his maybe. I haven't seen it in the trailer.
Yeah, I didn't see it in the trailer, but I think they're saving that. I have no doubt there's gonna be some fists thrown. Maybe even punching a mirror. I could see that happening.
Yeah, because his dreams shatter.
Yeah,
maybe.
Oh, he's
I don't
ashamed
care,
of the man.
to be quite honest.
Yeah, it's definitely a testosterone fest. But at the same time, it's F1. Like, what's the female viewership of Formula One racing? Outside of girls being forced to watch with their boyfriends on Saturday morning because there's a race in Abu Dhabi.
I can't tell you anything about Formula One racing. It's one of those things. Okay. You know how like sometimes like an older celebrity, like someone will talk about them and you'll be like, oh, they're still alive. Not that I thought they were dead, but like oh, you're still alive. That's how I feel about F1 racing. I was like, oh, they still do that. Okay. I had no idea. It just wasn't on my radar. I didn't know that was still a pastime.
Really, really. I mean,
No, I did not know.
because I'm like not a Formula One fan at all. I couldn't care less. But it has been coming across into my little sphere that like, oh, F1's becoming more popular and like
Really?
more people are watching it. Oh yeah, I got a brother-in-law who like watches every race. He watches the qualifying races. He'll get up at
Oh my
9 a.m. on a Sunday um, to watch these things. Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. But I do
Wow.
know that it's becoming very, very popular. Um,
Wow.
Now, one cool thing about this film is that because of Lewis Hamilton's involvement, they were basically given, unfettered access to the Formula One racing circuit. Basically, this movie production during the 2023 and 2024 seasons served as like the 11th team on the circuit. They were given their own paddock in the heart of the action to better capture the racing sequences. They had as many as 28 cameras running simultaneously. I don't know if that's really that impressive. Like, come on, like 28 cameras, like, wow, 28 cameras running simultaneously. And they had 5,000 hours of footage by the end of the 2024 season. Now,
Mm.
of course, this is really the real story here is not how these really like hot, sexy, cool men came together to make a hot, sexy, cool movie. It's about Apple's overall vision for film and television.
Mhm.
Apple's foray into film and television through their Apple TV Plus streaming service. It began in 2017. Apple enlisted Zach Van Amberg and Jamie Ehrlicht as head of Apple Worldwide Video. They really focused on the TV side. At the time, both those people were heads of Sony Pictures Television, but they were riding high on their success with Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. So, but since launching in 2019, Apple TV Plus has struggled. Apple does not release official subscriber numbers, but in 2025, it was estimated that the service had around 45 million subs, well below industry leader Netflix's 300 million. It was also losing around $1 billion per year, despite what is now an impressive library of hits and critical successes, such as The Morning Show, Ted Lasso, Severance, and now The Studio. The film division, meanwhile, has been even more up and down. They spent $200 million on Killers of the Flower Moon, which then went on to, despite the critical success, only grossed $67 million domestically. They won an unexpected Best Picture with Coda in 2021 after acquiring the film at Sundance. But more recently, as Imani alluded to, they sent concerns through Hollywood after they pulled the theatrical release of Wolves, starring super sexy George Clooney and Brad Pitt, causing some to speculate that Apple was reversing course on its commitment to big Hollywood theatrical productions. So, do you think, despite your non-excitement, is spelling doom for F1 at the box office?
Um, I would never be so bold as to predict doom for a film. Never. Every time I see a film cost $200 million, though, I am like, that's a choice. And I don't know if you're going to, I don't know if you're going to get back what you hope to get back. $200 million. And, when we say that, we're usually only talking about the production budget. We're not talking about marketing on top of it. So I'm like, there is a really large amount of money that they have to recoup to break even. I think if the men who go see it that first week really see something that they think could compel their girlfriends I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I
Oh,
don't know.
man, I don't like that story you're telling. I don't like that story you're telling. We have a male loneliness epidemic. There's not like large groups of 30-year-old men running around being like, let's all go to the movies, dogs. Like, I don't think that's,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know either because yeah. Oh, that's a really great question. Do men go to the movie theaters by themselves or are they usually going like on a date with their usually lady counterpart who's not going to want to go see F1?
I go to the movies by myself all the time. I love going to the movies by myself, but
Well,
I
you
don't.
don't count. You count as a man, but not as the sample population we're
No,
looking at.
I don't. Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think so. I service the lonely male cohort in my screenings. Trust me. And they like highbrow, artsy fartsy shit. I don't know about the sort of like the average Joe,
Yeah, neither do I.
what their viewing
Neither
habits
do
are.
I. And that's where I'm like, I don't know what's going to go on here because So they keep saying it's going to be a very commercial film, right? They literally, Ehrlich says, quote, just because something is unapologetically commercial, which F1 is, it doesn't mean it doesn't achieve the highest level of quality in that process, end quote. So it's going to be unapologetically commercial. So I'm like, okay, maybe we're hoping we're going to get like the Fast and Furious guys to come and see it.
Yeah.
But
But
Apple is like also known, in my opinion, as being like for the arts, not the charts. Like they make very artistic films. And so if this is staying in that vein, which they seem to be hinting at, they're like, we also told a really great story here. I guess I'm just like, I don't know how they're gonna walk their line. Cause if it's like a super highbrow racing film, I just I don't know. I have no idea.
I'm really worried. I don't think it's gonna do very well. I think it's gonna bomb. I think it's gonna I'm not worried. I'm not stoked about this. I also found this article overall rather uninspiring. They frame this article all with this sort of like Lewis Hamilton going to visit Tim Cook at the Cupertino Apple campus, which sounded like the most boring meeting ever. It's literally like the two of them being like standing on a hill being like, is that San Jose over there? And Tim Cook going, yeah, yeah. And they just like
Yep, it
just
is.
piddle around on this campus. It sounded so boring. I think this is gonna probably be like the worst of all worlds, which is that like I think the movie is probably gonna be good and be entertaining and like a good
Mm-hmm.
movie, and nobody's gonna go see it.
Yeah.
Or just not nearly the volume to like cross the like $450 million threshold they need to break even.
But you said it's based off of IP, correct? Do we at least have like a built-in fan base, maybe?
I think the IP of F1. Like that's what I mean is like it's like the
Oh.
recognizable name of F1.
Oh.
But from what I understand,
Mm.
the F1 fans are quite divided because there's this very popular reality show, Drive to Survive, on Netflix that have brought a lot of people into the F1 fold. But then those hardcore F1 nerds, they find Drive to Survive like so beneath them and like, oh, I can't believe you're watching the drama from last season on Netflix. Ugh, like I'm like deep in the paddock like right now. Um, and I don't know if those people will really cross over, like particularly into the theaters. Um,
Mhm.
uh, if I had to predict, I don't think it's going to make enough money to be considered a success. Now, they did come out with this special trailer that you can watch on your iPhone, and it gets the haptics
Yeah.
of your iPhone, like the little vibrator in your iPhone, to like buzz along with the trailer. Did you watch this on your iPhone?
I did not because I am a proud Samsung owner.
Whoa!
I
Whoa!
love
Plot
her.
twist.
But I did make my husband watch it, and he said that it was not cool.
Yeah. I gotta watch it. Are you familiar? Are you familiar with the filmmaker William Castle at all?
No.
William Castle, he was known in the 50s for making really schlocky, bad horror films, but were always like around a gimmick that he would like put into the theater. He made the
Okay.
original, I want to say made the original House on Haunted Hill, and he would rig like fake skeletons to like fly over the audience like during the movie.
Okay.
Well, he came up with a gimmick for a film called The Tingler, where he would install he installed little buzzers under a few of the of the theater seats at every theater this movie played in, and at a certain point the film would like quote unquote break. Then it would like be the film would break, and you'd hear Vincent Price's voice, because of course it starred Vincent Price. He'd be like, ladies and gentlemen of the theater, I'm sorry, but the tingler is loose in the house now. And then like five
No.
of the seats would start buzzing, and like they would hire fake actors to be in the theater and go, oh my god, like, and
Oh
like
my
faint and
god.
like be carried out on stretchers. I think they spent half the film's budget on these stupid buzzers and like fake plant actors for the film, trying to create a spectacle. I couldn't help when it's everything, when anything is advertised as like a trailer you can feel, I can't help but think of the Tingler.
The Tingler!
uh
Oh, no.
it was not giving me confidence. I also didn't think the trailer was that good. It didn't I don't think it was
Yeah.
it like really compelled me
Yeah.
on a story level.
No. But I will say again, right? The thing that I like, the thing that I appreciate is this desire to contribute to film history, I guess. So I'm like, I like that they made the new technology. I like that this is allegedly the first trailer that you can feel. I'm like, okay, you guys are you're contributing something, you know? And I really did for how like I don't even know what word to use for what that article, the first one with Variety felt like. But for all that it felt like, I did get the vibe that Tim Cook legitimately appreciates film and likes film and makes films because he thinks the arts are a worthy investment that also may be helpful for Apple, but like, you know, so many companies, especially out of Silicon Valley, they don't do anything unless they're like, we're getting an immediate return. And it seems like Tim Cook is not super preoccupied with that.
Yeah, it's a great point, and I'm glad you brought this up. Tim Cook does generally come off as quite a thoughtful, like intelligent person. I know that's his brand, but he really does. He plays the part incredibly well. He had a quote that I wish I wrote down. I didn't quite. I didn't. I did. I just searched for it. Tried to word search for it. He called film the cross section between technology and the social sciences, or something like that. He used some like social something word. It
Mhm.
might have been social sciences, which I've just never heard anyone phrase it in the way that he did. And I agree with you. It does seem to be that like, look, I've always thought Apple had the best of intentions when it came to
Mhm.
film and television. And I think they make good stuff. It's
Yeah.
very it's very disheartening that it's been such a struggle to find the market success that they have like in all their other products.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they should market more, honestly. I
Yeah.
think that's part of it. Every day I feel like I hear about this gorgeous, prestige, well-written, A-list starring like piece of work that Apple's put out that I have not seen a single piece of marketing for. Like it's just a person on Twitter was like, "Hey, this was really good." And I'm like,
Yes.
"Why aren't you guys investing in telling people these shows exist?"
I agree. I agree. It's very, very strange. Well, now you all know about F1, so go check it out. Go check it out. We were not paid. We were not paid by Apple. We'd love to be paid by Apple. Apple, if you want to send us some money to promote F1, please. Okay, moving. Oh man, my segue. I haven't even focused on my segue game, Imani. Speak. Speaking of money. Speaking of Apple's money. Money, they say, is ruining television. At least this is according to Atlantic writer Sophie Gilbert, who had a recent article in the magazine. She says the quote, depictions of extreme wealth are everywhere on the small screen, and well, it's all quite boring. She references a lot of ideas being brought up by a Substack writer named Emily J. Smith, so I wanted to shout her out as well. This article, she frames everything by talking about And Just Like That, the Sex and the City reboot show. She bemoans the changes to the show from its original and believes that the greatest ill that is that all the characters are now rich. Quote, the point of the show is no longer what happens because nothing does. The point is to set up a series of visual tableaus showcasing all the things money can buy, as though the show were an animated special issue of Vogue or Architectural Digest. Boom, in your face, HBO. Imani, are you a And Just Like That fan?
Um yes, I'm more of a Sex and the City fan. But, like, because I like Sex and the City, I also like And Just Like That, which is why I'm like, "Sophie, you're so wrong." Like, you're so
Whoa.
wrong.
Okay, tell us why.
Well, first and foremost, I'm like, Sex and the City was never a realistic depiction of human beings and their wealth. Like, it has since day one, people have been talking about Carrie Bradshaw's wardrobe and
Yeah.
the size of her apartment and how it is not physically possible in this realm for her to have all that she had on her little writer's salary. Like,
Yes.
like from the beginning, that was established. It's always been wealth porn and it's always been propaganda for New York. They made New York look so sexy, it's so glamorous, like since the beginning. And so I think that And Just Like That is the natural genesis of that, with these women being, 20 years, 30 years older. I would hope that they've acquired more wealth. And if they already started the series with unrealistic levels of wealth, where are we going to go from there? And I also want to say, hair toss. In the first season, right, the fashion of And Just Like That was not giving. It was okay. It was just fine. And that was because they
Oh.
didn't have the original designer from Sex and the City. They brought him back for season 2, and the fashion was immaculate, and the ratings for the show went up because that's what we're watching it for. We're watching it for the fashion, we're watching it for the escapism, we're watching it for Carrie Bradshaw being unrealistic. So I just have to disagree with Sophie on specifically using And Just Like That as the framing device for this article. I do think she makes some good points, but I'm like, this was never the show to base your argument on.
Wow, I love this take. I, as a non Sex in the City watcher, not hitting the quadrant for me. And obviously I did not make the transition to And Just Like That. How weird would it be if it was like, I didn't watch Sex in the City, but I love And Just Like That. Do these people exist? I don't know. The Sarita Chowdhury heads of the world. Anyway, so as someone who does not watch the show, I don't have an educated opinion on this. But so I love that you came out with this take. However, it has long bothered me that we are getting more and more depictions of extreme wealth,
Mhm.
and quote unquote aspirational tableaus, in particularly in small screen entertainment, and we are losing touch with the sort of like middle class American story that really dominated television when I was growing up in the 90s.
Mhm.
Just like from our dramas, White Lotus, Sirens, Succession, The Better Sister, Your Friends and Neighbors, even, and this is a quote from the article, quote, even supposedly normie shows such as Tina Fey's marital comedy, The Four Seasons, and Aaron Foster's unconventional rom-com, Nobody Wants This, seem to be playing out in worlds where money is just not an issue for anyone. Obviously, we've got the reality TV side, which is like long since left normal society behind. We got the Real Housewives,
Mhm.
Kardashians, and then now, like, I know my wife watches some of these shows on Netflix. Like, I feel like Netflix has like scooped the HGTV energy. Like, HGTV is like too broke, and Netflix instead serves you stuff like Selling Sunset. There's the like French home buyer shows where they're selling like millionaire real estate. And then you have stuff like With Love, Meghan, where like Meghan Markle LARPs as like a sort of like home builder, homemaker, like,
Yeah.
whatever. Just so weird. And then finally, this is another quote from the article. Even our contemporary workplace series, such as Severance and Shrinking, play out in fictional realms where people work not just for the humble paychecks that sustain their lives, but to escape the grief that might otherwise consume them. So, Imani, have you noticed this sort of shift towards depictions of wealth, the sort of wealth porn, as you called it? And what do you think is the underlying reason for that?
Yes. I mean, I have noticed it. I want to yes and it though. Like I love to hold two things and I'm like, it absolutely is going on. But I want to also point out that one of the shows that is like most popular on television has been dominating the air since it came out is Abbott Elementary. And that show is very much blue collar and people have issues with money. And I mean, that's like the whole point of the show, right? Is that the
Right.
school itself has issues with money. And there are other shows too. Sophie does say some of them in the end, but I was like, okay, but yeah, right? Like The Bear is also a really huge show and like they're struggling in that show. We have The Pit, we have 911 which has been on for a long time. I don't know if maybe we don't want to count it because it's kind of like a little bit of a procedural, but like it is regular ass people answering, the emergency lines. So we do have those shows. That's where I want to hold both things. I want to say I don't think it's fair to say we're not getting those shows anymore because we are and they're doing really well. And also there is more. Like there's more of these wealth-based shows where it's like so casual how rich everybody is. We're not even like fully acknowledging how rich these people are and it feels disingenuous. But I don't know why it's going on, but I do know that it feels on par with here I go.
Oh, let's go.
Basically, I'm like everything that the mainstream experiences. Black people experience 10 to 20 years all like ahead of time. And so when I think about the programming that was, that peak television of the late 80s, the 90s, and the aughts, I'm like, we had a lot of Black shows. We had so many shows that showed us in a whole lot of different socioeconomic statuses, from very hardworking and blue collar to extremely wealthy. And we started losing a lot of those shows, like a lot of the blue collar ones, and then we just kind of lost them altogether. And now it's like very hard, honestly, to find on like prime time. The way that back then, like you could turn on The Fresh Prince of Bel Air, you could turn on Family Matters, and like you could turn on That's So Raven and just like
Yeah.
see uh Black families in realistic wealth strata and in elevated wealth strata, but easily and in the mainstream. And then that shit fell away. And now when we do see Black people, like a Black show, it gets kind of a prestige treatment. And I don't know why that's happening. But all that to say that, like, for example, Bel Air, like, I feel like that was a really big when that came out. Um, but it's, first of all, it's IP, right? It's The Fresh Prince of Bel Air again. But it was like extreme wealth on screen. Um, Even like Insecure and Atlanta, which started with Black people having like wealth problems, ended with both of them being like very wealthy. We can
Yeah.
maybe debate how wealthy Issa was in the end, but like everybody was doing well at the end of that show, you know? And so I don't know what's going on there, but I've already seen it happening with my people, and now I feel like it's catching up in the mainstream. This, like, maybe I'm working this out in real time. Maybe the art is just catching up with what's happening in real life, right? Which is this hollowing out of the middle class. We're not getting middle class stories anymore because we're not really getting a middle class anymore.
Yeah, well, I think that is a absolutely brilliant point. And it's interesting to even think about, yeah, that journey of sort of Black focused entertainment as a precursor to sort of these broader perspectives. Makes me wonder about sort of like potential hollowings out of the Black middle class, like over the aughts, like before coming into the 2020s. I don't know the data there, but it wouldn't surprise me. It's so that yeah that I also I do agree. Now, I was also thinking that there might be an element here, because I think you bring up really great points, and bringing up all those other shows that do show working class people that are wildly popular is a great counterpoint that is like not really addressed within the original article, and it is an ultimate flaw of the article, which is that they cherry pick shows to make their point. One of the things that I was also I was thinking about is that how the aesthetics of wealth have changed and really streamlined themselves for not just television, but for just like image capture in general. I feel like if you photographed an average, like an average wealthy person's house in
Mhm.
even 15 years ago, the pre Instagram, the style was often a lot, it was quite gaudy. It was like maybe a little
Mhm.
cluttered there was like, there wasn't quite the aesthetic choices in design, but as minimalism and these very aesthetically attuned kind of spaces that rich people inhabit have become such a
Mm.
feature because of the Instagrammable quality of these spaces. Those have
Mhm.
also attracted the eyeballs of film and television, and it's like, well, ultimately, like, what is the core basis of drama? Interesting people in interesting places doing interesting things.
Mhm.
The certainly the interesting places part is automatically checked by that situation of wealth that lends itself to the eye so easily in this day and age.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. Like, at what wealth looks like now is just incredibly appealing to look at and incredibly cinematic. It's nice to put on screen. And
Yes.
even it's funny because in the article, she talks about how like the Kardashians, when they first started their home, I think she said it was like ample but chintzy, and now it's like very aesthetically pleasing. But it's like the Kardashians were not poor in their first season of the show. So like to what you were saying, it's like rich people's houses just didn't, they weren't as curated as they are now. Like, is it that we're showing more rich people, which I'll already pre-answer and say yes. I think we are showing more rich people, but also yes, being rich looks different now. Um, And so maybe that makes it less easy to, like, identify with. Like, maybe it feels more ostracizing now because 'cause you're like, "That's not what my house looks like," if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, and almost like, I mean, look, aesthetics and wealth have always gone hand in hand,
Mhm.
from the beginning of time, from the beginning of human marketplaces. Like aesthetics and wealth go hand in hand. But I do feel like we are at a very unique kind of, well, not singularity, but a sort of this convergence of aesthetic design as as a wealth signifier, and then how that
Yeah.
translates to video and photos. I don't know. I don't know really what that means, other than that like people want to be in beautiful places and beautiful spaces. And
Mhm.
I do wish that, like, so I was just in Rome. My wife and I were just traveling in Rome, and Rome is such an interesting place because it's like you have these aesthetic spaces designed for very wealthy people for the last 2000 plus years, sort of littering the landscape. And yet Rome somehow always manages to kind of fuse the divine with like the extreme perverse and like banal.
Hmm.
And so in Rome you have this convergence of sort of like the line between extreme beauty and like extreme crass gaudiness, and sort of, and then like also like trash on the street and like kind of like
Mhm.
something kind of disgusting, kind of live hand in hand. And unfortunately America has only become more stratified. So in that way, Rome and sort of the idea of Rome, it's like rich and poor are so deeply intertwined, and good taste and bad taste are so deeply intertwined, and that's very much part of the sort of social fabric there. Whereas in America, everything is so stratified. It's like rich people truly live in a whole other world, and the rest of us are eager, and a beautiful world, and of course the rest of us are eagerly watching, just as we would
Mhm.
in real life. Of like, if you had access to Tim Cook's mansion and you could walk by and look in his window, like they did in the ancient Roman world, where the Roman politicians, they lived in these grand open houses because that was their idea of public life, is that the public could literally watch them eat dinner in their homes. Like if we could do that today, I mean we do that today. It's just through television shows like Succession.
The thing that kinda confuses me is I don't know if you remember, like, 2 or 3 years ago, maybe oof. Yeah, like, 3 years ago, we had this, like, influx of Eat the Rich content. Like, we got, like, Triangle of Sadness, The Menu, and I can't remember off the top of my head, but we got, like, maybe 4 of them, like, in 1 year. Just like this, here's extremely rich people and terrible things happening to them. And, oh, honestly, I'm gonna throw Beef on there because of the way that Beef ends. Um, and it really felt like, to me, maybe like a tide was turning in terms of like what's gonna be programmed, because clearly there's this class solidarity that's starting to rise. And so it's interesting now to be like, no, instead we're just like showing rich people being unhappy. Like that's
Well,
what we do.
I mean, I would push back. I love that. I love that you brought up Triangle of Sadness. Huge Ruben Ostlund fanboy over here. But I think that that movie falls into the category of like, yes, the premise is eat the rich, and like the idea behind it is eat the rich, and yet 60%, 70% of that movie is still happening in an incredibly glamorous, gorgeous space with incredibly glamorous, gorgeous people. And one of the things that was brought up in this article is that it's not enough to say that just by depicting a criticism of rich people in rich spaces, that you're teaching audiences to look at them critically, to look at those depictions critically.
Mm,
Quote, the Four Seasons San Domenico Palace in Sicily was fully booked for a good 6 months following the second season of The White Lotus, despite
mhm.
the fictional bodies floating in the water. And a study conducted at the London School of Economics in 2018 found that a person's increased exposure to shows that regularly glamorize fame, luxury, and the accumulation of wealth made them more inclined to support welfare cuts. It also noted other studies that found that the more people watched materialistic media, the more anxious and unhappy they were likely to be in their own lives. It's an old adage in the film world that you can't make an anti-war film that shows war. In the same way, I don't think you can make an anti-rich film that shows rich people doing rich people shit.
Oh, Aaron. I don't disagree, I just don't know if I agree. And this is actually something I've really struggled with. I've really struggled with this. Does the depiction of something, even if it's honest, is that inherently some sort of cosign? Is that inherently some sort of glamorization? Is there a way to show rich people just living their lives without putting an opinion on it that does not inherently still count as like a platforming and a glamorization of it? I don't know.
I don't know either. Now, I will say I have a little personal story to tell here because I am a total hypocrite. Like even though I just like definitively said like this that you cannot do this thing about the rich people. I was at Tribeca last week. A friend of mine had a really wonderful role in this new film Sovereign, starring Nick Offerman, which is about a guy it's based on a real story. It's about a guy who's like a sovereign citizen, kind of right wing sovereign citizen, and who like basically indoctrinates his son into his sovereign citizen ways. And it ends with this like terrible shootout where they kill several police officers, and it's based on a real incident. And at the talk back after the film, a woman stood up and said to the filmmaker, "Well, don't you have concerns that this movie is just like giving fuel to the far right?" And I was sitting in the audience just being like, "Oh my God, what a stupid fucking question." Like how dare you even ask this question? Like, these are artists, like they can tell whatever stories they want to tell. Like, hopefully they do it in the best way possible. But like, yeah, just because you're showing something on screen is not a tacit endorsement of it, lady. So I was like completely on the opposite side of the fence when it came to like this particular film. So I don't think there's a right or wrong answer here at all. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what the right answer is.
I don't know either, and I don't know if there is a definitive one because it opens up the debate, right, of then, like, intention versus impact and the responsibility an artist has when it comes to, like, knowing their audience, right? Because it's like then you get down the path of, like, the fact that a lot of people are like illiterate in when it comes to like media. Like there is a stark issue with media literacy right now. In that a lot of people do see something on the screen and think that that means it is an inherent endorsement. You know, like you can show people Fight Club and they're not taking away, you know, right?
Yeah.
You can show people The Matrix and they're
Oh my
not
God.
taking away what they're supposed to be taking away from it. And it's like, okay, as an artist, is it your job to meet them where they are and be like, I'm just going to hit you over the head with it since that's all we can do? But maybe not. Because, for example, The Boys, one of the reasons why a lot of fans had issues with the last season is that they were like, we're going to hit you over the head with it. And even then, still people took what they wanted from that and were like, actually, this is somehow feeding my personal agendas about authoritarianism and how we should like it. So I don't know. I don't really know.
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to completely backtrack on everything that I said
My
previously.
God.
I now no. I think the truth might actually be that like in this hyper individualized world where we all are essentially like have at least have the ability to do our own private reality TV show on Instagram, and everyone needs a take, and like this show is even like fitting within that genre, and we're just as much a part of this economy of opinions and individual ideas as possible. It's not the artist's responsibility to like cater to all these people. Like
Mm.
it's the artist's responsibility to show the truth as they see it to the best of their ability, in which case like a critique of the rich can, I think, just take place as much within a rich setting as possible. I think that's probably an incorrect estimation. Although, if I knew the restaurant from the opening scene of Triangle of Sadness, if I knew where that restaurant was, I'm sure it's somewhere in Sweden. I'd be down for a reservation.
I'd go to the restaurant.
I'd go to
I'd
the
go on the
restaurant.
ship. The ship looked nice.
I wouldn't go on the.
Just make sure it doesn't crash.
No,
I
no, no.
mean,
I've
it
seen
didn't even
things go
really
down on
crash. It
that
got
ship. I've seen things go
pirated.
down on that ship.
Yeah, well, yes, I agree with you though. I do. I think as artists it's our job to be thoughtful, and I think we should take our job seriously. I think we should feel a sense of responsibility to the audience that we serve. But I don't think that we should be pandering or feeling particularly beholden to making sure that people get it, right? I think you should tell your story the best way that you can. and the ones who get it will get it, and the ones who don't, and the ones who want to misunderstand, we're going to do that either way.
And this is the great problem that I think is taking place within film and television right now, and why people aren't connecting with it in the same way that they once were, which is that the corporate interests, the money, the giant conglomerates that are the only people who can afford to fund these types of movies, their interests are completely on the side of pandering, virtue signaling, making sure everybody understands everything exactly, the way that they want it to protect their money. And so we don't have any sort of the brave, real boundary pushing type of storytelling that we did in the past. And it turns people away. People can smell the bullshit. People smell the bullshit all the time.
Absolutely.
Well, this has been a tour de force podcast.
This was so much fun.
Yeah.
I had so much fun.
Oh, thank you so much for coming down and joining me today, Imani. This has been great. Please tell us, where can people find you? Where can people follow your work?
Yes, absolutely. So you can follow me on Instagram at Imani Vaughn-Jones. You can follow me on TikTok at Imani Vaughn-Jones. And you can go to my website, ImaniVaughn-Jones.com.
Yes, she's such a multi-hyphenate. She's got a hyphen in her last name. I've been saving that one all.
Oh, I'm going to steal that. That's so good.
I don't know if you...
I was born with that hyphen, too. That is my birth name.
Really? How do you feel about
Yes.
being a hyphenate last name?
So it is frustrating because the whole marriage situation, you're like, what do? I just get rid of all of it? Do I hyphenate it
Do you
a
add a
second
third?
time?
Do you add a third?
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. As of right now, I've been sticking with Imani Vaughn-Jones because I'm in entertainment, so I didn't have to really solve that issue because you stick with your stage name once you've got it. But it caused me a lot of turmoil, and I'm still trying to figure it out because I still think that my private name is going to change, but my public name will always be Imani Vaughn-Jones. That's an exclusive here for everybody.
Nice. Imani, you can trust the brand loyalty of Imani Vaughn-Jones. Rolls off the tongue really nicely. I can't believe I just asked you about your that's like a very personal question to end this podcast. I'm sorry.
You can cut it if you feel. That's up to you.
It's interesting. I mean, my wife and I have this debate all the time. We made an entire short film about the naming of our daughter. That's a whole other story. Anyway,
so filmmaker of you.
I know. Anyway, this has been lovely. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, subscribe, rate, review, hit us with those 5 stars, leave a little note on Apple Podcasts, on the YouTube comments. Those things really go a long way to help us out. Sammie will be back next week with her tales from the beach. But in the meantime, this has been wonderful. Imani, thank you so much, and I will talk to you again soon.
All right. Thank you.